So just before we start the meeting officially, I just wanted to just go over a bit of procedure. I know there's probably some people here who were not here last time, so just to let you know what we do up here. So first of all, good evening and welcome. This is the second of three scheduled public planning meetings with respect to the proposed development on Highland Gate Golf Course. The application, concerns proposed draft of subdivision, official plan amendment, and zoning bylaw amendment. Before we begin the formal meeting, I'll outline the purpose for tonight's meeting, the public planning meeting process, and the meeting protocol. The purpose of tonight's public planning meeting is to provide members of the public with information and allow members of the public to address us with your comments. Members of council are here to listen to your comments, and we'll all be furiously taking notes. Given the time allotted for tonight's meeting, it is certainly potential that council will not be making a statement on what we heard, nor would we probably be making a decision tonight. So the purpose is, or the process, of the meeting, town staff, planning staff will outline the purpose of the planning application which is being considered. After staff speak, the applicant will be given an opportunity to make a presentation and address issues which have already been raised, and that was at the meeting in June. Following the presentations, members of the public will be invited to offer comments or concerns with respect to the proposal. In a typical public planning meeting, there's an opportunity for staff and or the proponent to address questions or comments raised by the public. That did not happen during the June 24th meeting. We went almost right up to 10 o'clock with comments from the public. So over the summer, members of our staff did answer those questions, and all those questions are posted on our website, and that can be found at aurora.ca/HighlandGate. Depending on the number of comments tonight, there may be an opportunity for some questions to be answered. If not, again, the answer will be posted on our website. As a matter of protocol, all comments must be directed to the chair, which is me. We're requesting that anyone who would wish to speak tonight sign the register, and Patty over there has the register, and the purpose of that is just so that we put it up on the screen so you can see when your turn is coming up. We found that it's a very effective process, so you know when your turn is coming up. If you wish to speak and have not signed the register, we would appreciate it if you would do that now. Just go over there and see Patty. If you wish to receive further notices, Patty also has a form, an interested party form, which are kept by the clerk's department. She's holding that up over there. If you've already filled one out, you do not need to fill another one out. In accordance with the York Catholic District School Board policy, tonight's meeting must conclude by 10 o'clock. Each speaker will be given 5 minutes to provide comments. Speakers will be called in the order that their name is on the register. Again, this is the second of 3 scheduled public planning meetings. The first was held on June the 24th. The next one is scheduled for October the 28th. If anyone on the registration list does not get an opportunity to speak tonight, you will be given priority at the next meeting. There's no holdovers from the last meeting. So what has happened since the June 24th meeting? As we already mentioned, all the points that were raised during that meeting have been addressed on our website. All the external commenting agencies have finished and submitted their reports to the town. In fact, we actually just received a report from the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority on Monday. It's also available on the town website at that Highland Gate address. We have received some peer reviews, for example, traffic, and we're waiting for other peer reviews as an example of a hydrogeologic study. Lastly, the procedure for a public planning meeting is set out under the provisions of the Public Planning Act. It's an act of provincial parliament. It's important to note that when council sits in a public planning meeting, we are sitting as a quasi-judicial body. Therefore, we are very strict about the procedure and the protocol that we follow. So just in case you think we're getting a little bit too pedantic, we are mandated by the Public Planning Act as to how we structure our meetings. So I hope that helps understand a bit of how we'll be carrying forward tonight. Mr. Clerk, we will now start the meeting. It is 6:38. We are a special council public planning meeting, Wednesday, September the 30th, 2015. We're at St. Maximilian Catholic High School. Councillors, declarations of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof, please. Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, may I please have a motion to approve the agenda as circulated by Legal and Legislative Services? Councillor Fury, thank you. Is there a second? Councillor Rack, it's a little bit more difficult when we're in a straight line like this. All in favor of the agenda? Contrary? That is carried. Where is my public planning notice that is? I don't have one. You can just ask. Do you want to just ask? Okay, I will now ask the clerk to. There. Oh, we got it. This is a mandatory statement which is read at all public planning meetings. Welcome to Aurora's public planning meeting. The purpose of this public planning meeting is to inform the public of the application and obtain public input. No decision on the application will be made tonight. For the planning application that will be considered by council tonight, the following process will occur. Town planning staff will outline the purpose of the planning application being considered. The applicant will then be given an opportunity to make a presentation and address issues that have been raised by staff or public concerns already filed. Following the presentation, members of the public will be given an opportunity to offer their comments or suggestions on the application. As I mentioned earlier, assuming if there is time, council will also be given an opportunity to address. Once we've heard from the members of the public, if there's time, as I said, I will ask members of council for their comments. It should be noted that a comprehensive report will be prepared and presented to a future general committee meeting assessing the merits of the application before us and providing council with a recommendation for consideration. It's very important that the town receive correct names and addresses of individuals having an interest in the planning application. Therefore, if you plan to speak at council at this meeting, or if you want to be notified of any further council or committee meetings concerning the application being considered, you must complete one of the green interested party forms that our committee secretary has over at the corner. Under the Planning Act, any applicant or resident has the right to appeal any decision of council on a planning matter to the Ontario Municipal Board. But you must verbally express any comments or concerns here tonight, or submit any comments or concerns in writing to the town prior to council adopting an amendment. The Ontario Municipal Board may dismiss all or part of an appeal made in respect to an application. This public meeting is being audio and video recorded. Your name, address, comments, and any other personal information are being recorded according to the Municipal Act and the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. This will help our clerk prepare accurate minutes and to create a record that is available to the general public, including the town's website. Questions about this collection should be directed to the town clerk, Town of Aurora. I'll now ask our clerk to confirm that notification to the public has been issued as required under the Public Planning Act. Mr. Clerk. Just push.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The required notice of public meeting for item 1, the proposed draft plan of subdivision, official plan amendment, and zoning bylaw amendment, Highland Gate Development Inc., 21 Golf Links Drive, file sub 2015-01, OPA-2015-01, ZBA-2015-02 was given by mail on September 10th, 2015 to all addressed property owners within 120 meters of the subject lands, by ground signage posted on the subject lands on August 28th, 2015, and by notification in the Aurora Banner and the Aurora newspapers on September 10th, 2015 in accordance with the rules of procedure under the Planning Act. As well, planning staff provided 160 copies of the public planning meeting notice to a representative of the condominium board from 14924 Yonge Street on September 18, 2015 for distribution to all units in the condominium building.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I will now ask the Director of the Director of Planning and Development Services to begin with the presentations. Mr. Lumino.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll ask Lawrence Cook, who's one of the town's development planners, to come down, and he'll be providing an overview of the planning applications with some background information. And then we'll turn it over to the applicant, and their planner will also have a presentation following the town's presentation. Okay. Go ahead, Lawrence.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and members of public. The application at hand tonight is a draft plan of subdivision, official plan amendment, and zoning bylaw amendment application at 21 Golf Links Drive. The proposed application had its first statutory public planning meeting on June 24th, 2015 in this building. That evening, council passed a resolution that public comments will continue to be heard at September 30th and October 28th, 2015. The owner is proposing a residential plan of subdivision over the 41-hectare parcel of land. The purpose of the amendment application are to redesignate and rezone the subject land to implement a residential subdivision. The subdivision here is shown outlined in red, which stretches from Bathurst Street on the left to Yonge Street to the right. The proposed application will be reviewed for consistency with the provincial policy statement, the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan, the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan, York Region Official Plan, Town of Aurora Official Plan, and the zoning bylaw. The subject land has the following designation: private parkland, environmental protection, and stable neighborhood. The owner is proposing to redesignate portions of the subject lands to stable neighborhood, public parkland, and environmental protection. In addition, the owner is proposing a maximum height of 3 stories or 11 meters for single detached dwellings, whereas the existing official plan permits 3 stories or 9 meters within stable neighborhood designation. Here is a plan which shows a portion of the subject land which the owner is proposing to redesignate. The following slide here shows the existing zoning of where the major open space are, where the major open space exception 2, which is the existing parking lot by over at Yonge Street, as well as the Oak Ridges Moraine Environmental Protection Zone. The owner is proposing to rezone the land to R2 Second Density Residential Exception Zone, RA Apartment Residential Exception Zone, Environmental Protection Exemption Zone, and Major Open Space Exception Zone. There is a list of exceptions are noted in the staff report. The plan here details out the proposed zoning classifications, and a more detailed map is also in the staff report. The table here represents what the owner is proposing within the subdivision. In general, the owner is proposing a 184 single detached dwelling, a high density block of 10 stories, which is located closer to Yonge Street, which is estimated at 144 residential units. But in addition, the owner is proposing 14 hectares of environmental protection lands, 5 hectares of parkettes and open space land. Here is a plan which details out the proposed plan of subdivision, showing what is being proposed west of Murray Drive. The next slide here shows the proposed draft plan of subdivision east of Murray Drive. Staff have received first submission comments from various internal and external agencies. A final comprehensive list of comments will be included in a future staff report. Please note that York Region have exempted the official plan amendment from regional approval, and all comments received have been forwarded to the applicant. Planning staff have received numerous of concerns from the public. Staff has summarized these concerns under the following headings shown in this slide, as well as more detailed in the planning staff report. The following reports have been or are being peer reviewed: the urban design guidelines being reviewed by the planning partnership, the transportation report by Poulis Chung Limited, and other environmental reports by R.J. Burnside. Currently, staff have received peer review comments from Poulis Chung on the transportation report. Next step, staff will take a technical review of the subject applications and address comments received from tonight's public meeting, as well as the public meeting from the previous meeting in June, as well as the following meeting in October 28th, 2015. Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. Mr. Raimondo, do you have anything to add?
To you, Mr. Mayor, just one clarification. I think it was on the screen, but Lawrence, I think it didn't mention that. Any comments that we have received from any agencies, we not only provided those to the applicant, but we've also provided those comments to the Ratepayers Association, and we've placed those on the Town of Aurora's website.
Thank you. Now ask the proponent.
Mayor Dahl, members of council and staff and residents of Aurora, my name is Don Given. I've spoken to you previously on this matter, and I'm here tonight to give you an update on what we have been doing on behalf of our client and where we are today in terms of seeking to clarify or to obtain some form of clear direction on where we are going. So I would deal first with just a reminder using this slide that this is an area that has been a golf course in the past. Today it is vacant land. It's intended to be urbanized by my client in a pattern of lots that would be no smaller than 50 feet wide, with housing that would be the equivalent to what exists there today from a price point of view, from a quality point of view. The plan has necessitated a series of single-loaded roads to be created because the fairways that exist today are very narrow. Some of you who have played the course that either are here today or may know about it have said that it's a difficult course just because of the tightness of the course. What we have to do is try to find a way to use portions of this area for housing, but 50% or more of the land will be left in open space to be conveyed to the municipality. Now, since we have met with you, we've been working as a team to resolve and, as I said, to deal with certain issues. And I'm just going to try to find a way to make this screen advance. There we are. And in order to make sure that we had a full representation here, all of our consultants are the suits at the back. We have brought them here in case you have time for questions, and we wanted to make sure that we had the right people here to answer the questions, because some of the questions that were raised previously dealt with levels of knowledge or experience that go beyond mine. So we wanted to have the opportunity to properly respond to the residents or to yourselves. But they are all here and eager to address you. I'm going to deal first with one of the issues that has been the most actively discussed aspect, and that is how do the various lots that exist today are impacted by redevelopment of the golf course lands. And what we have found through the period is we're dealing with approximately 200 residents, or 200 homes, I should say, whose properties back onto the golf course lands. And of those, we have contacted for consultation 107 of them. Not that we haven't tried to get them all, but there's actually been contact with 107 of them. And of those, there's already agreements in place that have been executed with 33 of them, and 44 of those are expected to be signed back. And what those agreements do is that they clearly commit my client, Geranium, to provide for either planting or grading, or in some cases land, to be conveyed to the municipality or to the adjacent lands to try to keep the properties that they have whole. We do not want to cause intrusion into their lands, even though some of them are actually on golf course properties. So we're trying to deal with that in a very sensible way. And the process has been to meet with them directly, along with the owners' representatives, an architect, Mark Schoen, who's here, has attended, engineers have attended. In some cases, grading was an issue. And they have come back with very specific proposals for each property that are captured in those agreements that show how the interface would take place in the future. All of those agreements that we have out there are predicated on getting an approval from the municipality. Should we not get an approval from the municipality for the plan that we are seeking, we don't know what that means to us. We don't know whether we're talking a different plan or where it takes us, but we are committing to those changes on the assumption that the plan we have in some form will be approved by this council. There's several other things that have been going on. Now, the Ratepayers Association has spoken to you as a group. At the last meeting, they had their block captains individually speaking, along with the president. We first met with them on behalf of our client, and the client was there early in December, or late in December last year, then in January, and again in July. So there's been effort made to reach out to them, to understand the concerns, to make sure that before this really got out into the public, they were aware of it, so that we could say that we've tried to understand ahead of time what you were concerned about. And in some cases, the plan that was applied for incorporates concerns that we heard in those original consultations. I've talked to you about the individual homeowners, almost 200 of them that we're trying to deal with. With respect to, again, our efforts to reach out and consult before your process, we had a meeting on April the 15th of this year that we hosted, and it was a well-attended meeting. It allowed the presidents to come out and hear from us what we were proposing, to engage us in discussions, and we thought that was very productive. We also attended the meeting on June the 24th that you hosted. We have now, since the June 24th meeting, been made aware through the circulation of the to the different agencies of the application that there are responses that you have received. Dealing first with York Region, as your planner had indicated, they have indicated that the official plan amendment would be dealt with at the local level, not at the regional level. They also have provided conditions for the draft plan approval. They're not objecting to this. Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority, as of early, I guess it was the 28th of September, submitted a very fulsome response that dealt with a range of things, but by and large it was 5 pages of conditions, prefaced by a comment that I would like to read to you. It reads, based on our review of this submission, we are satisfied that all outstanding matters can be addressed through conditions of draft plan approval. As such, we recommend that any approval of the official plan amendment, zoning bylaw, and plan of subdivision be subject to the following conditions, and there's 5 pages of them. So that comment has come in, and I know at previous discussions there was concern about some of the issues we're dealing with, whether it was the vegetation protection, the hydrogeology, the water course, flooding, things like that. They're all captured in the response by the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority. On the transportation side of things, you have had a peer review prepared that reviewed the work that was done by our consultants, BA consultants. And that peer review was done by Nick Poulos, who's a very reputable consultant that has been around for many years, almost as long as I have. And his comments are basically that what he has seen from our consultants indicates that the work has been done properly, that all of the analysis has been done according to the normal standards that would be done by an engineer. And in particular, he commented on one of the ones that I know was quite contentious, and that's the apartment building and the traffic that some claim is in part created by the problems with Tim Hortons Donuts. His conclusion on that basically was that there's sufficient capacity for this development to proceed, and it's not going to create an unusual impact on those lands.
Mr. Gibbons, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. There is another aspect that was raised that I think is worthy of discussion, and that's that with respect to the cul-de-sacs that we have, they're quite long, and typically the concern is that emergency services may have a problem with an excessively lengthy cul-de-sac. Your fire services responses indicate that they have no significant issues with that aspect. The 2 school boards have had no objection. The various utilities that we deal with, Bell, Enbridge, Hydro One, Power Stream, have no objections. Your bylaws, your building and bylaw services, no significant issues. Archaeology and built heritage, no significant issues. And the park services we've met with, and the plan that we have is a plan that we believe, from discussions directly with the park staff, is acceptable to the town. There has been one other issue that I would like to discuss that has come up, and that came from Legal Services back in January 20th of 2015. It was how you interpret the intent of the 1-foot reserves and how they should be enforced or dealt with. And what was important, and this came up in the last public meeting, I thought I should read the conclusion, because not everybody will have had the opportunity to, is that the 1-foot reserves do exist within the Highland Gate, but their use as leverage in any future development of the lands cannot be heavy-handed or arbitrary. The purpose of 1-foot reserves on planning as a planning tool is to enable municipalities to control access and development on the adjacent lands. The courts have ruled that a municipality exercising its discretion to lift a 1-foot reserve can't make its decision in bad faith, for arbitrary reasons, or for extraneous, irrelevant, or collateral considerations that have nothing to do with relevant planning principles. That's your legal advice from your own lawyer. I thought that that was helpful because that's the same advice that we have received. And we did dig into that because we know there is history here on how those 1-foot reserves were applied, and that it has been controversial in some of these meetings. The changes that we've made, I'm going to run through with you because the plan that we have previously submitted for circulation has been commented on by, as I said, many agencies, and in some cases, changes have been necessary. The changes in no case are major changes. They're basically refinements of the line work, and I'm just going to discuss a few of these. In this particular case, there's been a slight adjustment in the lotting fabric. This is a section of the lands out on the east side, or the west side of Cranberry Lane. And you'll see that the lotting fabric has been slightly changed. Still no lot being less than 50 feet. That's a minor change that we thought was appropriate in this location. The second change is a very small change. On the back of lot 28 south of Marsh Harbor, you'll see that the line that we have, which is a feature or a limit that has been given to us by the Conservation Authority, has changed. It doesn't impact the lot at all. It's really just a block change of no real significance. Street D is being relotted and the roadway realigned to deal with a couple of issues. Again, no significant changes. The lotting fabric, as you can see there, again, does not use anything less than a 50-foot lot. In Street E, we've had to deal with some concerns about some of the lot sizes at the end of the cul-de-sac, and those were modified, and in this particular case, you can see on the plan that the lotting fabric is different, so that where we had 3 lots, we have 2 lots now. And in this particular case, on Street F, again, dealing with some minor changes in road alignments and floodplains, the plan has been slightly modified. Highland Court, we were asked to consider increasing the frontage on these lots to be more compatible with the lands to the north. We have done that, so the lots are wider and the yield has been reduced. And in Street H, we had to remove or pull back the cul-de-sac that resulted in a change in the yield, and that was dealt with to allow for a proper configuration of the lands on that side of the Street H. Slight changes on another one of the cul-de-sacs to deal with a widening of the 9-meter servicing easement that was necessary. And at the rear, some changes in the boundary of the floodplain. And a few changes here to deal with, again, the cul-de-sac and getting lots that are sufficient in width to be workable. What you see now is a change in that end lot so that it's much larger than it originally was. So those are the changes. They haven't dramatically altered the yield, but they have reduced it. We are expecting that we will have further discussions with your staff. They may have some other issues that they would like to raise and discuss with us, but we did meet with them, and they were good enough to send us a set of changes that they thought should be considered, which we've worked through. Dealing now with the condominium block, I'd like to remind you that this building that we're proposing, it's 10 stories, is not that different than the buildings that exist there today. The reason we think it's appropriate is that when we read all of the guidance that we get from the region, from the province, about how we should be taking advantage of transit and trying to get more people close to it, Yonge Street stands out. Yonge Street is a corridor that the region has planned for higher order transit. We're just in proximity to it. The building itself will be an attractively designed building. We believe it'll fit in. The concern that the residents had about parking to the north goes away. We don't think that is a concern. This building will be primarily serviced with underground parking, just some visitor parking at grade. So there'll be no dependence on outside areas for parking. And the parks plan and the landscaping plan that you have seen previously, I'd just like to point out a few things. The western part of the block that you see where the larger park is intended to be built concurrent with the first phase of development, so that as people are moving into their houses, they will have a park. The trail system that we have here, which is a part of the citywide or townwide spine servicing, has about 80% of the total trail in non-paved surfaces off the road. We think that's a very major contribution to the connections between Yonge Street and Bathurst Street that will take over and be used by the Oak Ridges Marine Trail people, which presently use the yellow line that you see. And the statistics on the parkland, basically in summary, we have extensive parkland here. We greatly exceed any parkland obligations under the Planning Act. And as I said earlier, we've had meetings with the town staff, and we understand that what is being proposed here is acceptable. So, Your Worship, members of council, we are very pleased to have this opportunity. The process we've gone through, as you can tell from the number of people we have here and what I've discussed here, has been a very extensive process of consultation. We have listened, we've made changes where we thought we had to, but we came into this with a good knowledge of what was expected of us as well. And we think that the work that we did prior to the application stands up quite well. And we would like to move forward knowing now that we have the comments back from the agencies, and that by and large, from what we can read, there's no significant issues raised by any of them. We would hope that you can deal with this in the near term following, as I understand it, the meeting that's coming up in October. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Given. I will now open this up to members of the public. The first person who is listed is Chris McGowan, Linda O'Connell, Gary Gerson, William Hayes, Klaus Wernberg, Chris Neal. So I will remind you, if you come up to the microphone, please. And I know there's some people who've come in since we started. We would just ask if you would care to speak to please go and see Patty standing over by the door and just register so we can just keep track here in a nice orderly manner. If you could give us your name, sir, and your address, and you have 5 minutes, and there's a countdown clock right there.
Chris McGowan, 64 Golf Links Drive. Mr. Mayor, members of council, I've got a number of concerns about this development. First, I strongly object to the proposed tennis courts at the Yonge Street end of Golf Links Drive. My reason for this is that it will destroy even more green space. During the first public meeting, one of the developers said of the golf course that this was land that has lost its usefulness. I don't see it that way. As a scientist, I see that that land has got living plants in it, and living plants are the only mechanism on this planet for removing all the carbon dioxide that we throw up into the atmosphere. 100 million tonnes every day for that carbon dioxide. Plants are vital, and every square inch of this old golf course that isn't being used for a house should be left as green space. My second objection is the building of condominiums right next door to the Sunrise Retirement Centre. Most of those residents will be spending the rest of their years enjoying the peace and serenity that is in that vicinity. Removing that from them is unconscionable. Getting back to those tennis courts, what I'd really like to see at this end of Golf Links Drive is a return of that very nice duck pond. This was removed, destroyed, under the directive of the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority. One of the reasons given was that these inline ponds, they collect phosphorus and other nasty things, and this flows downstream, gets into the Holland River, and eventually goes into Lake Simcoe. Second reason given was that those ponds heat up, and all that warm water, that flows downstream too, along with all those other nasty things. Anyone with any knowledge of science would recognise what a silly thing that was to say. When bodies of water like ponds absorb heat from the sun, it's only the surface layers that warm up and absorb that heat. And that warm water, being less dense than the cold water below, floats on the surface. There's very little exchange of heat between the top layers and the lower cold layers. It's called a thermocline. We mostly seen that for ourselves up in cottage country at the end of a nice hot summer's day. You go swimmity swim, the water's lovely and warm, but put your foot down below and it's freezing cold. The classic silly statement from the Conservation Authority is that since closing that pond, and I quote, phosphorus entering Lake Simcoe has been reduced by 1.05 kilograms per year. I won't bore you with the arithmetic, but if you calculate the millions of tons of water in Lake Simcoe, that represents a change of 1 part in 1,000 trillion. That's a number 1 with 15 noughts after it. Gosh, they must have some fantastic equipment in that authority. What are my credentials for criticising their science? By gosh, 45 papers published in scientific journals, 2 textbooks, 8 popular books on science, national recognition for my research achievements, full professor at the University of Toronto, senior curator at the ROM, and I've named 8 new species and 3 new genera. Restore